Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Charles Sabansi, and welcome you guys to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO show. We cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a hilarious show for you guys. Before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. My handle is CTABANZ. Follow the channel, DREAMERSPRO. And also check out our podcast that we have pinned in the comments below. This is going to be a funny show, and I'll tell you why. As you guys know, Jason Whitlock and Stephen A. Smith are having a back and forth. And I remember, might have been a few months back, it may have even been a year ago, where I had stumbled upon an audio of Jason Whitlock essentially saying, Stephen A. Smith doesn't know much about sports. He doesn't know anything about the NFL. He's a basketball guy, really. And I remember him saying that, but I didn't really pay much attention to it. Now, as you guys know on this channel, we cover sports news, some entertainment topics, excuse me, and predominantly basketball content. We rarely talk about the NFL. The reason we rarely talk about it is because it's not my forte. I don't feel comfortable enough to talk about it based on the knowledge that I have, so I try to avoid it. You know, we have Marcellus Wiley that visits the show, so I tend to ask him more about NFL because he's a former professional NFL player. So obviously he'll be more versed in certain topics. So what happened yesterday? They were on ESPN, and they were talking about the overtime game that took place in the Super Bowl. And some of the 49ers players were coming out essentially saying that they were unaware of the overtime rules that are in the playoffs, because some of you may be aware that the overtime rules in the playoffs and the overtime rules in the regular season are different. So what we want to do is I actually want to read from Fox Sports. Here, I have the article here from Fox Sports, where they basically break down the definition of the new rules that the NFL implemented. So let me get into this article here. 2024 NFL overtime rules, regular season versus playoffs. The 2023 postseason featured the debut of the new NFL overtime rule that ensures both teams receive at least one possession in any playoff game that ends tie after 4 quarters. Here's everything you need to know about the league's overtime rules. Regular season overtime rules. In the regular season, NFL games that are tied after 4 quarters of regulation will enter a 10-minute overtime period. OT begins with a coin toss to determine who will get the ball first. Each team will have the opportunity to possess the ball unless the team that gets the ball first scores a touchdown on the opening possession. Sudden death play, where the game ends on any score, continues until a winner is decided. And then a few other footnotes. Each team gets 2 timeouts. The point after try is not attempted if the game ends on a touchdown. Now, let's get to the playoff overtime rules. How does it work, and can a playoff game end on a tie? Unlike regular season games, which can end in a tie, postseason games can't. Overtime rules in the postseason consist of as many 15-minute periods as they're necessary until there's a winner, instead of a single 10-minute overtime period in a regular season game. Both teams will now get at least one possession even if the team that has the first possession scores a touchdown. If the team that got the ball first doesn't score a touchdown, or if the score is tied after each team has possessed the ball, the next score would end the game. If the score is still tied at the end of an overtime period, or if the second team's initial possession has not ended, the teams will play another overtime period. Play will continue regardless of how many overtime periods are needed for a winner to be determined. That's the rule. And this is the rule that NFL coaches should know. This is the rule that NFL players ought to know. So what happened yesterday on ESPN First Take? They're talking about this because they were reacting to some comments that the players of the 49ers were saying, where they said basically they were not versed on the rules. And then Stephen A. Smith starts to talk. And as he's talking, you come to the realization that even he himself was unclear of the rule. And at the very end, Shannon Sharpe basically had to save him from embarrassment by explaining the rule to him again. And then Stephen A. Smith actually tries to save face at the end and say, oh, yeah, I just meant in terms of the veracity and the moment that we were in. So for those of you who didn't hear that soundbite, we want to play it for you now, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith had to say here.
I'm coming to you on this one, Shannon. This was a little surprising for me to hear the Niners players admitting they didn't even know the OT rules. Can you break that down for me?
No, and I would have never admitted that publicly.
Right.
Just they changed the rules a couple of years ago because everybody felt that whoever got the ball between the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, that's who was going to win the game. And so the NFL, because it used to be sudden death, any score in overtime, the first two score, the game was over. But they said, you know what? It doesn't seem fair. Now, if you kick a field goal, you don't win. We're going to give the other team a possession. And then Patrick Mahomes comes back. He gets in field goal range in 13 seconds. They get the ball in overtime, and they win. And the NFL says, you know what? Patrick Mahomes is so good, we want everybody to have a possession. This is elementary school. So everybody should get an award. Everybody should participate in the overtime. And you didn't know that? Even if yes, that's been a rule. Everybody should know that. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
But you didn't score a touchdown, so it didn't even matter. You're talking about if you had scored.
Right.
Doesn't matter. You didn't score. I like the ball. Honestly, I like the ball second because, D.O., I want to know what I need. And guess what? I get an extra down because I get to go for it on fourth down if I didn't get it on third down. And see, that was the difference. Because
and if you scored a 2-point conversion as well. Yeah.
And exactly. Yeah. Because Kyle Shanahan, he took the field goal. But had he needed to know he needed a touchdown, he's going for it. So I would have because the game doesn't end if I score a touchdown. Mm-hmm. It's not like the old rules in regulation. Mm-hmm. In regulation, you score a touchdown, game's over. But in the postseason, everybody's going to get a possession. So scoring first does not matter. I would have deferred because I need to know what Patrick Mahomes did, and so now I get an opportunity to either match or exceed what he did.
I will say this. Number one, this particular situation is a smear on the entire organization.
It is.
And let me tell you why. Number one, you're the coach, Kyle Shanahan. It's your job to make sure you articulate what the situation is, that your players know all the rules they need to know. That's number one. Number two, hold the players accountable. Last time I checked, you can read.
Yes.
You understand? You're playing the game. This is your profession. How in God's name are you going to be post-game at a Super Bowl and talk about you weren't even aware of the circumstances of an overtime game when it's a Super Bowl championship on the line? It just goes to show that folks were asleep at the wheel, at least to some degree. They certainly didn't play that way, especially defensively, because I give them a lot of credit where credit is due. But nevertheless, you cannot have a situation where you're admitting post-Super Bowl that you didn't even know the rules that pertain to overtime. Overtime is sudden death. Overtime is everything is on the line right now. And it's the Super Bowl championship that's on the line. And you're literally saying you weren't aware of it. That is just embarrassing. And that is a negligence of duty.
No. It's not sudden death because it was sudden death in regulation. You score a touchdown, you win the game. Understood. But the postseason, wild card, divisional, championship game, and Super Bowl, both teams will possess the football.
I didn't mean it in its literal sense. I get you're totally right. I'm just talking about the urgency of the moment is there. It's flagrant. You cannot be in a situation like that saying you didn't know the rules.
It's basically college football.
Dan,
college football, everybody gets a possession.
Hold up. I want to get Dan in here, guys.
So you heard what Stephen A. Smith had to say. Now, some people may be saying, why is this a big deal? I didn't understand. I mean, you don't know all the NFL rules. You don't talk about the NFL. That's a very good point. But here's the fundamental difference. The fundamental difference between Stephen A. Smith and I is I don't work for ESPN, number one. Number two, I'm not getting paid, what is he getting paid? $12 million a year, $1 million a month to know these things. He is, not me. Not me. He is. So as someone as the face of the network to not know the overtime rule of an NFL game, in a Super Bowl, that means even if the game was going on, even he was confused. So had Shannon Sharpe not made that swift correction, Stephen A. Smith himself would have been totally confused by the rule. So what I want to know from you guys, what do you think about the fact that Stephen A. Smith, even he himself, as you were saying, the players, they ought to know the rule and this and this and this, but he himself was totally unclear about the rule. Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts in the comment section. We catch you guys on the next show. Peace.